Hello, welcome to Close Relationships. This is Social Cognition. Our first lecture today is how do people perceive their partners? Do people perceive their partners accurately? Well, there's two different ways that we can talk about that. There's two different things that we could mean when we're talking about accuracy. So first, we could have directional bias. Directional bias refers to differences in mean or average levels across a sample in a given judgment compared with a benchmark rating. Tracking accuracy is the association between a given judgment and a relevant benchmark. This particular example has high tracking accuracy, which is low bias, and it also has no directional bias. So in this particular picture, we have no bias. If we're talking about what this picture means, we've got the blue line here. That's Hans's actual levels of different personality traits. Frozen is fictional, but this is not how he was portrayed in the actual movie. Let's say he is more friendly than he is trusting or smart, and he's more trusting and smart than he is ambitious. Now, this red line is Hans as perceived by Anna. According to this line here, Anna can tell that he is more friendly than he is trusting or smart, and she can see that he's more trusting and smart than he is ambitious. So she shows high tracking accuracy. Her dots line up with his dots, and she doesn't show any directional bias. The lines are perfectly on top of each other. In this example, if Hans were actually a great guy and Anna sees him as a great guy, we would have no bias, right? The next form of bias, we're looking at high tracking accuracy or low bias, but also high positive directional bias. So in this case, when we're looking at Hans's actual levels, we have friendly. He's more friendly than he is trusting and smart. And he's more trusting and smart than he is ambitious. And so we see that Anna's perception of him, these red dots up here, line up perfectly. She also still sees him as more friendly than he is trusting and smart, and more trusting and smart than he is ambitious. But the difference here is that the red lines are scooched way up on the graph. Even though she tracks who he is accurately, she sees him more positively than he actually should be seen. Hans is an okay guy, but Anna thinks he's great. So directional bias. We have another form of bias here where we're looking at low tracking accuracy and high positive directional bias. So here we have Hans's actual levels in blue. So again, he's still more friendly than he is trusting and smart. He's more trusting and smart than he is ambitious. But this time, Anna has no idea. She has him as more trusting than he is friendly. She has him as less smart than he is ambitious. She's just kind of all over the place. But she still has this positive directional bias. The red line is still higher up than the blue line. In this case, we're just saying Anna has no idea. She just thinks Hans is a great guy. She has no idea who he is. She can't put it all together, but she thinks he's awesome. Our final form here, we're looking at low tracking accuracy and no directional bias. We see Hans's actual levels here. Friendly is greater than trusting and smart, which are greater than ambitious. But then Anna perceives Hans as less friendly and trusting than he is smart and ambitious. Right? We see that the mean or the average of this line would line up perfectly with the average of the blue line. So there is no directional bias. It's not completely higher or completely lower than his actual traits. But the dots don't match up at all. If we wanted to look at this more accurately, we'd flip it around. So now we're looking at Hans, as perceived by Anna, is friendly, trusting and smart, but not very ambitious. But Hans's actual levels, not very friendly, not very trusting, probably super smart, definitely ambitious. So Anna totally overestimates the good and underestimates the bad in this version of Hans. This is when we're talking about no directional bias, but poor tracking accuracy. How biased and accurate are judgments in romantic relationships? Do people know who their partner is? Well, Fletcher and Kerr in 2010 conducted a meta-analysis of bias and accuracy in relationships. A meta-analysis is a big study where they go back and look at all of the published papers in an area and then put them all together to get the statistics to find out across studies what the associations are. In this case, they had 38 studies that they were looking at that had both tracking accuracy and directional bias. In those studies, they were not correlated. So tracking accuracy and directional bias are two separate things. They found some evidence for accuracy across 98 studies, and 27,000 participants, tracking accuracy was reliable and substantial. This is a correlation of 0.47. The highest correlation you can get is a 1. The lowest is -1, which would mean completely opposite. A 0 would be essentially no correlation. So this is between 0 and 1. This is a pretty substantial correlation when it comes to personality and social psychology correlations. Different personality traits over time tend to be in the 0.3 range. So this is actually really good. There was also some evidence for directional bias. They had fewer studies that looked at directional bias, but in 48 studies and 9,000 participants, they found positive directional bias was also reliable, but weaker. In this case, we're talking about directional bias. So there is a tendency for people to see their partner more positively than he or she actually should be seen. So people tend to see their partner more positively than they should. But that's a very weak correlation. It's close to 0. It was significant because they were looking at so many participants. It's a really small effect. These are some of the different domains that they were looking at. Our correlations over here, you can see, range from 0 to 0.7. They could go up to 1, but none of them went that high. This looks at the different domains in which we show tracking accuracy. In other words, perceiving relative strengths and weaknesses. So we're pretty decent at differentiating personality traits. If you were going to describe me, you might say that I'm super neurotic and I'm kind of in the middle on introversion and extroversion, and I'm pretty open to experience. So you'd be able to say those things fairly accurately. You'd know that I was more agreeable than I am extroverted, and that I'm more neurotic than I am agreeable or extroverted, and that I'm more conscientious than all of the other things. So basically, you'd be able to tell which of those things I was stronger in. You can also see that they had pretty good accuracy for negative interaction traits. These are things like being critical, hostile, saying negative things, rolling their eyes, not taking turns in conflicts. You can see that they're somewhat less, but still pretty substantial tracking accuracy for positive interaction traits. So that's things like humor, taking turns, and demonstrating empathy. Mind reading is not actually psychic mind reading. Really what we're talking about here is how well are you able to guess what your partner is thinking about. People are pretty good at that. We're getting up to a correlation of 0.6. Memories, I don't remember offhand, haha, what the memories referred to here, but they were pretty good at that. Predictions, predicting the future of their relationships, and people were pretty good at that too. So you can see across lots of different domains, people show pretty strong tracking accuracy. In summary, people are remarkably accurate at making all different kinds of relationship judgments, but wearing rose-tinted glasses or seeing things just slightly more positively than they actually are is also commonplace.